Imagine you are sitting behind the wheel of just an absolute masterpiece of engineering.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Right. So you are in this pristine, top-of-the-line luxury car. The engine is immaculate. The tires are perfectly balanced. The gas tank is completely full.
Sounds like a great ride.
It is. You have all the potential in the world to go incredibly fast and to travel incredibly far. But there is one glaring problem.
Oh, what's that?
The battery is dead.
Oh, yeah, that's an issue.
Right. And because that battery is dead, you are going absolutely nowhere. I mean, you are totally stranded. All that engineering, all that potential, it means absolutely nothing until someone completely outside of you pulls up next to you with a set of jumper cables.
Wow. Yeah, that is a profoundly grounding visual to start with.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because today we're looking specifically at the people holding the jumper cables in your life story.
I love that analogy
Yeah.
because it confronts this fundamental vulnerability about the human experience that, well, we usually go out of our way to ignore.
We really do.
We all, regardless of our talent or our drive, we have moments where the engine just will not turn over. We lose our momentum, our direction, our internal motivation. We simply go dark.
Exactly. And that brings us directly to our mission for this deep dive. If you've been following our daily series where we unpack Rhonda Byrne's book, The Magic, chapter by chapter, you know we are hitting a major milestone today.
We absolutely are. Day 12.
Yes, day 12, which is titled Magical People Who Made a Difference. We are going to break down exactly how you recognize, and more importantly, the specific psychological mechanics of how you actively honor those pivotal individuals who provided that vital external spark in your life.
Such a crucial chapter.
It really is. To set the philosophical stage, Byrne frames this entire concept around a really striking quote from Albert Schweitzer. For context, Schweitzer was a theologian, an organist, a medical missionary, and, a Nobel Peace Prize winner.
Just a casual resume, right?
Yeah, right. Just a few minor accomplishments. But the text uses his exact words, and I want to read them here. He says, "At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each one of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us."
What is genuinely fascinating about Schweitzer being the one to say that is his own background?
How so?
Well, here is a man who was objectively brilliant,
Yeah.
right? A celebrated achiever across multiple, highly complex fields. He's the quintessential high performer.
Yeah, totally.
Yet, he is the one pointing out that personal achievement is incredibly fragile. It's dependent. The source material uses this exact sentiment to challenge a very pervasive, very modern myth.
You mean the concept of the self-made individual?
Exactly. Society loves the narrative of the lone wolf. We idolize the person who, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, fought against the odds, and conquered the world in total isolation.
I buy the jumper cable idea on a personal level, but society pushes that self-made narrative so aggressively right now. It feels like admitting you needed a spark, or, I don't know, admitting you couldn't get the engine started on your own is almost viewed as a weakness in today's culture.
Oh, without a doubt.
Like you somehow cheated the system if you didn't conquer your obstacles entirely in a vacuum.
And that is exactly the illusion the text is trying to dismantle. The reality, according to this chapter, is that the self-made person simply does not exist.
It's just a myth.
It is a statistical and historical impossibility. Every single one of us has received a lifeline, a piece of crucial guidance, or a direct, tangible intervention at a critical time.
Right.
No one makes it through the darkest or most complex parts of the map without someone else holding a torch for a few miles. The text insists that recognizing this doesn't diminish your own hard work. Rather, it aligns you with reality.
So, as you are listening right now, I want you to start aggressively scanning your own history. Think back through the major turning points, the crises, the sudden pivots in your life. Who pulled up right when you were stranded? Who held the jumper cables?
And when you start looking for these unseen architects of your life, you quickly realize they come in wildly different forms.
Yeah, they really do.
The text makes it very clear that we aren't just talking about formal mentors. We aren't just looking for people with official titles like, guidance counselor or executive coach.
Right. The cast of characters can be incredibly diverse and surprisingly mundane. The book lists some obvious figures you might expect a teacher who actually believed in your potential when you were an absolute mess of a student.
We've all had one of those.
Definitely. An uncle, an aunt, a grandparent who provided a safe harbor. It could be a doctor or a nurse who treated you with extraordinary dignity during a deeply vulnerable medical crisis.
Those moments really stick with you.
They do. But
Ah.
then the text branches into the more subtle interventions, like the person who casually introduced you to your current partner.
Oh, that's a huge one.
Have you ever actually stopped to think about the gravity of that? If that one brief, perhaps totally accidental introduction hadn't happened, your entire domestic reality today, your family, your home, your daily routines, none of it would exist.
It's wild to think about. Or consider the person who introduced you to a random hobby that eventually snowballed into your defining passion or even your career.
Exactly. And then there's a category that honestly haunts me a little bit when I think about it.
What's that?
The total stranger,
Oh, yes.
someone you didn't even know, who appeared in your life for maybe 10 minutes, performed a profound act of kindness, altered your perspective, and then vanished forever. You don't even know their last name, but they completely changed your trajectory.
Which brings up a very real psychological tension that the book tackles.
What do you mean?
Well, if these people are so monumental in shaping our destinies, if a stranger or a passing friend literally rewrites our future, why aren't we celebrating them constantly?
Right, why aren't we thinking about them every day?
Exactly. Why aren't we acutely aware of them? The text points out a simple but tragic reality of human nature. Life just sweeps us up.
It does. We get so busy.
The sheer grinding busyness of daily survival takes over. We experience these profound sparks, they get us moving again, and then we just stare at the road ahead and completely forget the person who gave us the jump.
It's a strange quirk of human memory. We are so forward-focused. The book really leans into this hindsight phenomenon.
It's so true.
We very rarely realize the magnitude of an intervention while it is actively happening. You might be a decade or two down the road before you pause, look backward, and suddenly see the architecture of your life with crystal clarity.
Right, because you can't see the whole puzzle when you're just looking at one piece.
Exactly. You look back and realize, wow, if that one specific person hadn't said that one specific challenging sentence to me on that random Tuesday in 2012, I would have taken a completely different job.
You would have moved to a different city.
I would be a fundamentally different person today.
It is only in looking back that the actual narrative takes shape. The author, Rhonda Byrne, provides a very personal case study in the text to illustrate how this ripple effect actually operates in practice over a lifetime.
Oh, the story about her grandmother.
Yes, she uses the example of her own grandmother, and it's brilliant.
The way she breaks down her grandmother's influence is a perfect map of this hindsight phenomenon. She lists a few specific gifts her grandmother gave her: a love for books, a love for cooking, and a love for the countryside.
Now, if you look at that in the moment, when she was a child, those just sound like pleasant, generic, grandmotherly things.
Yeah, baking cookies and reading stories. You wouldn't think they were life-altering.
But look at the ripple effect the author describes.
Right. Because her grandmother shared that love of cooking, it became a massive, consuming 20-year passion for the author.
And her love of books.
That eventually led to her changing her entire career path to become a writer, which obviously resulted in the very book we are unpacking right now.
It's incredible.
And her love of the countryside literally dictated the geography of her adult life, influencing where she chose to buy a home and settle down.
You see, the grandmother was just sharing her daily interests. She wasn't consciously trying to map out a global author's career path.
No, of course not.
But those interests became the foundational bedrock for the author's passions, her livelihood, and her physical environment decades later. It's a perfect demonstration of how a spark is just the beginning of a much larger, uncontrollable fire.
Okay, let's unpack a fourth thing she mentions, because I actually have a hard time with this one.
Okay, let's hear it.
The author says her grandmother disciplined her with a steel hand to say thank you. As a kid, she just thought she was being forced to learn basic, rigid politeness. But in hindsight, she says being forced to say those magic words was the absolute greatest gift she ever received from her. I really struggle with the steel hand example.
I can understand why. It sounds harsh.
A lot of people deeply resent strict, authoritarian discipline from their childhoods. I mean, a lot of people spend years in therapy trying to undo the damage of steel hand parenting. Why should we view forced compliance as a magical gift worthy of deep gratitude?
That is a very valid critique, and it cuts to the core of how behavioral psychology works over a lifespan.
Okay, explain that.
If we look closely at what the source material is implying here, it's about the concept of germination. True impact often takes decades to reveal its actual utility.
So it's about planting a seed.
Exactly. When you are a child, you lack the cognitive context to understand why a lesson matters. You just see the rule. You experience the friction of the steel hand.
Yeah, you just feel annoyed that you have to follow a rule.
Right. But what was actually happening beneath the surface? That grandmother was laying down deeply ingrained neurological tracks. A forced lesson in basic social politeness was quietly building the behavioral scaffolding for a life-altering daily practice of deep gratitude.
Oh, I see. So you're saying the physical action had to become muscle memory first, long before the philosophical understanding could catch up.
Precisely. The author couldn't have comprehended that being forced to say thank you for a cookie at age 6 was going to eventually become the philosophical cornerstone of her entire worldview and her publishing empire.
That makes a lot of sense when you frame it like that.
The rigid discipline was merely the vehicle to install a habit that she would later imbue with profound conscious meaning. It shows how an intervention we might actively dislike or resist in the moment can actually be the exact psychological tool we need for our future self to thrive.
We plant the seed, but we don't get to see the tree until 20 years later.
Yeah.
Okay, that frames the who and the why really well.
It does.
So, if these seemingly small interventions shape our entire reality, how do we actively honor them today? Let's get into the actual execution of Day 12's specific magical practice.
The setup here requires serious, uncompromising intentionality.
Uncompromised.
Yes,
Yeah.
you cannot do this mentally while you're commuting or waiting in line for coffee. The text explicitly demands physical isolation.
So no multitasking.
Absolutely not. You have to find a quiet place sometime today where you can be completely alone, undisturbed. And once you are there, you need to consciously select 3 extraordinary people who have altered your course.
3 people. You are alone in a quiet room. You take them one at a time. And here is the instruction that might make some people deeply uncomfortable.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
You have to talk out loud to each person. You literally speak to the empty room as if they were physically sitting in a chair right across from you.
It can feel very awkward at first.
It really can. Now, the book does throw a small lifeline. If speaking out loud is physically impossible, maybe you're in a cubicle farm at work or a crowded apartment with paper-thin walls, writing it out as a letter is an acceptable alternative. But vocalization is the primary intended method.
And we should explore why that is. Why out loud?
Yeah, why is the author so adamant about speaking to an empty room?
The neurobiology of speech is entirely different from internal monologue. When you just think about something, your brain easily skips over details, it loops, it gets distracted.
Oh, tell me about it. My brain is constantly looping.
Exactly. But when you are forced to vocalize, you engage Broca's area in the brain. You have to translate abstract emotion into structured syntax and grammar.
You have to actually form complete sentences.
Right. Plus, you create an auditory feedback loop. You are hearing your own voice speak the truth of your gratitude, which processes the emotion through a completely different sensory pathway. It grounds the abstract feeling into physical reality.
That actually explains a lot. That explains why it feels so much heavier to say I love you or I'm sorry out loud compared to just thinking it in your head.
Precisely. The vocalization makes it real.
It makes it real. And there is a very strict operational boundary attached to this practice that we need to hit hard. The text insists you must complete this vocalized practice with all 3 people in a single unbroken session.
Yes, the one-session rule. This is critical.
See, I want to challenge that strictness.
Go for it.
Why is the author so adamant about clumping them together? I feel like I would naturally want to space this out to savor it.
Like spreading out a good meal.
Yeah. Do one person over my morning coffee, reflect on another during a quiet lunch walk, and address the 3rd person right before bed? Wouldn't spreading it out keep me in a state of gratitude all day long? Why force it all into one concentrated, intense block?
It seems counterintuitive if you think about spreading joy throughout the day, sure. But the author's reasoning relies on what we might call emotional physics.
Emotional physics.
The text argues that if you split this practice up, you simply will not reach the required depth of feeling, and consequently, you won't trigger the magical results. It is entirely about building and sustaining emotional momentum.
Emotional momentum, like a snowball effect rolling down a hill.
Think of it more like boiling a pot of water.
Okay, I'm tracking with you.
If you put a pot on the stove and turn the heat on for 3 minutes, the water gets warm. If you turn the burner off, come back at lunch, and turn it on for another 3 minutes, it gets warm again.
But it never actually boils.
Exactly, and never boils. When you express deep, vocalized gratitude for the first person, you generate a specific, heightened emotional frequency.
Turning on the heat.
Yes. If you immediately transition to the second person without breaking the session, you are stacking that new wave of gratitude on top of the residual warmth from the first.
Oh, I see where this is going.
By the time you hit the third person, you have created a massive compounding effect. Compounding the exercise into one unbroken session takes the feeling to a far deeper level. If you break it up, you are letting the emotional engine go cold, and you have to restart from absolute zero every single time.
You are constantly losing the charge from the jumper cables.
That's a great way to put it, tying it back to our car analogy.
That actually makes perfect psychological sense. You have to bypass your normal, cynical, day-to-day baseline, and the only way to penetrate that armor is through sustained, compounding focus.
Right. You have to keep the heat on until it boils.
So what are the actual mechanics of this vocalization? What exactly are you saying to the empty chair?
The text provides a very clear, almost architectural formula. A simple, "Hey, thanks for being a great friend," is entirely insufficient.
Not deep enough.
Not nearly deep enough. You are required to vocalize the specific reasons why you are grateful and, crucially, exactly how their intervention affected the timeline of your life. It demands narrative specificity. You have to tell the story.
To give you a concrete template of what this sounds like, the author provides an example in the book. Imagine sitting in a room and speaking this out loud. She writes, "Sarah, I want to thank you for the time that you encouraged me to follow my heart. I was lost and confused that day, and your words touched me and lifted me out of despair."
Notice how she sets the scene there.
Yeah, it's very specific. And then she continues, "Because of what you said, I found the courage to follow my dream, and I moved to France to work as an apprentice chef. I am living my dream, and I couldn't be happier, all because of what you said to me that day. Thank you, Sarah."
If you dissect that script, you see the formula clearly. It's essentially the hero's journey in miniature.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it really is.
First, it identifies the exact historical moment the day Sarah offered encouragement. Second, it names the vulnerable emotional state prior to the intervention: lost, confused, in despair.
You have to establish the stakes.
Right. Third, it maps the direct, tangible action taken as a result, finding courage and moving to France. And finally, it states the current positive reality, living the dream. It traces the full trajectory of the spark, from the dead battery to the open highway.
And when you are sitting there tracing that trajectory out loud, the text explicitly tells you not to worry about rambling. It says, you can't say too much.
In this specific modality, more is definitively more.
Don't hold back.
Exactly. The deeper into the weeds of the memory you go, the more you vocalize the nuanced details of how bad things were before they helped you and how good things are now, the stronger the emotional resonance.
So it's about amplifying that feeling as much as physically possible.
The text frames this particular exercise as numbering among the most powerful acts of gratitude you can possibly perform. In fact, Byrne uses incredibly strong language here. She claims you will literally see the magic explode into your life after doing this.
Okay, an explosion of magic is an extraordinarily massive promise.
It is a very bold claim.
Let's strip away the mystical terminology for a second. What is actually exploding? If we look at this through a grounded scientific lens, what are the actual results we are supposed to be looking for?
The source material divides the evidence into two distinct categories. The primary evidence, the immediate, undeniable proof that the practice is working in real time, is a profound internal shift.
Meaning what, exactly?
It simply makes you feel immensely happy. When you complete that unbroken compounding session of vocalized gratitude for 3 people, you will experience a massive spike in joy.
Oh, because of the brain chemistry we talked about earlier?
Yes. Neurologically, by stacking those highly specific positive memories, you are flooding your system with dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin.
So you're basically giving your brain a chemical bath of happiness.
Precisely.
And the secondary evidence, the actual explosion in your external life.
The text posits that this profound internal happiness acts as a magnet. It attracts more wonderful circumstances to you. Now, psychologically, we can understand this through the mechanism of the reticular activating system, or RAS, in the brain.
Let's break that down for people who might not be familiar with the RAS.
Sure. Your RAS is essentially the filter that decides what information gets through to your conscious mind.
Because there's just way too much data for our brains to process all at once.
Exactly. Millions of bits of information every second.
Mm-hmm.
If your RAS didn't filter it, you'd be overwhelmed instantly. When you deliberately force your brain to intensely focus on how supported, lucky, and guided you have been by these 3 people, you fundamentally reprogram your filter.
You're telling your brain what is important.
Right. Suddenly you start noticing opportunities, kindnesses, and positive variables in your environment that were always there, but you were previously too stressed, cynical, or distracted to see.
You change the internal filter, you change the external reality. It's like when you buy a red car, suddenly you see red cars everywhere on the highway.
The red car phenomenon. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
You are priming your brain to hunt for evidence of magic. The red cars were always there, you just weren't looking for them.
Exactly. The text calls this self-sustaining loop the magic of life.
Yeah.
The wonderful things arrive, or rather, you finally notice them, which reinforces the internal happiness, which in turn attracts and identifies even more wonderful things.
So the ultimate goal of day 12 is to shift your internal frequency so aggressively through this focused compounding memory exercise that your external reality has no choice but to reflect it.
That is a perfect summary.
Let's zoom out for a minute to see how this intense single-session exercise fits into the broader daily homework you are doing right now if you are following the 28-day program.
It is crucial to view this as an integrated system, not just isolated, disjointed tasks.
Right, they build on each other.
The foundational practices support the new daily exercises.
So, here is your complete roadmap for today, day 12. Step 1 is your morning baseline. This doesn't change. Make your list of 10 blessings. Write down why you are grateful for each one. Reread the list and say the magic words, thank you, thank you, thank you, after each one, feeling it as deeply as possible.
That primes the engine for the day.
Step 2 happens midday. Find your quiet, isolated space and make your mental or written list of the 3 magical people. Step 3 is the core execution. Work through those 3 people out loud in one single, unbroken session, detailing the why and the how of their impact using that narrative structure we discussed.
The hero's journey miniature.
Exactly. And step 4 is your nighttime closure. Right before you go to sleep, hold your magic rock in your hand, scan back through your day, and say thank you for the single best thing that happened.
If we look at the larger architecture of this chapter, it really demands a total paradigm shift from the listener.
How so?
Day 12 forces you to acknowledge that your life story is not an autobiography authored by a solitary genius. It is a profoundly co-authored project.
We didn't write it alone.
We are all deeply, intricately dependent on the perfectly timed interventions of others. Realizing this doesn't diminish your own hard work, your grit, or your agency, it just grounds you in the very real, undeniable web of human connection. We are all essentially walking around carrying jumper cables for each other.
Which brings me to a final thought I want you to sit with today. For this entire deep dive, we've been looking backward. We've been aggressively scanning your history for the people who held the cables for you, the people who provided the spark when you were completely out of light. But I want you to invert that perspective for a second.
Oh, this is powerful.
Consider this. Whose list of 3 are you on right now without even having the slightest clue?
Wow.
Whose life trajectory did you fundamentally alter with a passing compliment, a 5-minute conversation, a piece of advice, or a random act of kindness that you have completely forgotten about? You might be the unseen architect of someone else's entire world. Keep that in mind as you move through your day.